Hello. Nice to see you. To see you nice. Welcome to live stream. Just let me quit some things first. I don't know if you can hear my computer is freaking out. I don't think you can hear. So welcome to the live stream. If this is the first time you've ever been to live stream, then I'll tell you how it works. You can write me questions through Skype, the information is in the box below. My Skype address is LisaCairns12, and you can ask questions. You can call in. If you call in, make sure you have a headset with a microphone so it's not offensive to other people that are listening. And also be aware that it's being recorded for the internet, so whatever you say is public and can't be edited out afterwards. The talk today is called, let me see the title of the talk, Is Non-Duality a Philosophy or a Religion? If you want to come to any of the events I'm doing, the next event I'm doing is in London, which is on the 20th of July. You can buy the tickets online on my website. You can either buy them and pay in advance, or you can pay on the door, but you still have to book the ticket, and you get the option whether you want to pay at the door or buy online once you book the ticket. If you want to come to my event in August, I'm doing a retreat, a 7-day retreat. You can also book tickets online. It's really a beautiful place in northern Germany, so also very welcome to come there as well. You can find out all this information on my website. I'm also going to do an online retreat on the last Saturday of June, but I just haven't put that on my website yet. So you can also keep a lookout. So you can sign up to my website, and then you'll get updates and emails about new events that I'm doing. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then by subscribing when I go live, you can get notifications as long as you tick the notification box and you have it in your email, or you have the email notification turned on. Before I do a talk, I always like to do some silent sitting for like 10-15 minutes. You're very welcome to join me to do that. So hello, welcome to live stream. So is non-duality a philosophy or religion? I think I have to look up. I have to look up what actually philosophy is. I mean, I know what my interpretation of it is, but I just want to read what is Wikipedia's, like the general consensus. Philosophy, literally love of wisdom, is the study of general and fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reasons, mind, and language. Such questions are often posed as problems to be studied or resolved. The term was probably coined by Pythagoras. Philosophical methods include questioning, critical discussion, rational argument, and systematic presentation. Classic philosophical questions include: is it possible to know anything and to prove it? The camera went off apparently. My apologies, you can still hear me. Oops. I thought that this was full of battery, but it wasn't. My mistake. Let's put the other battery in 1 second. Hello. Just having a nice look at my shirt. So to me, philosophy, non-duality is a philosophy, not a religion. So if you look at the term philosophy, like that is what non-duality is. Whereas a religion, let's just look up Wikipedia, what a religion is. Whereas religion is a cultural system of designated behaviors, practices, morals, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, or organizations that relate to humanity, to supernatural, to transcendental or spiritual elements. However, there is no scholarly scholarly consequences over what precisely constitutes a religion. Different religions may or may not contain various elements ranging from divine, sacred things, faith, a supernatural being or supernatural beings, or some sort of ultimate and transcendence that will provide norm, power and powers for the rest of life. Religion practices may include rituals, sermons, sacrifices, festivals, feasts, trances, initiations, funerary services, metamorphonical services, meditation, prayer, music, art, dance, public services, or other aspects of human culture. Religion have sacred histories and narratives which may be preserved in sacred scriptures and symbols and holy places that aim mostly to give the meaning to life. Religion may contain symbolic stories which are sometimes said to by followers to be true, that have the side purpose of explaining the origin of life, the universe, and other things. Traditionally, faith, in addition to reason, has been considered a source of religious beliefs. There are over 10,000 distinct religions worldwide, and 84% of the world's population is affiliated with one by 5 large religion groups, namely Christian, Islam, Hindu, Buddhism, folk religion. So it goes on and on, like describing the differences. Not the differences, it goes on describing what religion is. The only way in which it's related to religion to me is that there is some sort of shift that happens, whereas in philosophy there's not a shift that's talked about. So in non-duality there is a shift from being someone, from being a limited entity to being no one. And in religion they were saying that there is a something that transcends. That's the only part in which I see it fitting with religion. But maybe that's to do with my beliefs and ideas about religion. To me, religion is a group of people that have practices and ideas and faith and belief systems, and they all come together and they all work towards something, and they all have these ideas in common. And to me, that's got nothing to do with non-duality. I think it happens in non-duality. I think that there's lots of organizations that try to make it into a religion so that people go to practice and people form a group, and people hold ideas together and belief systems together. They might even say in the group that they're not doing that, but they clearly are doing that. They have ways of being and interacting together. They have this belief system of consciousness of it being better than other ways of life, of living together, of community. Whereas philosophy doesn't contain that. Philosophy is just questioning what you believe to be true. And something magical can happen when you question what you believe your reality to be. Like what you think this life is, there is something magical underneath. Our concepts and our ideas limit us, but it's got nothing to do with a group, a political system, or people coming together. Often people muddle it up because they don't know how to live their life in this society, especially in Western cultures where we've changed so much in the last 100 years. People are sort of kicked out of home and told to live, and they don't know how to live anymore. They don't know what the right thing is, whether it's to marry, have kids, to take a job in a big company, to start up an own business, to live off grid. There's so many options for Western people, and throughout life I can imagine that religion and culture began to get like closely intertwined because we don't know how to live ultimately, and so to follow other people is comforting to us. To be told how to live, to be told what the meaning is, to be told what your purpose is in life is relaxing for you. And for there to be a group or a community that all practice that together, it can create this sense of family. And that's beautiful. I can imagine that's a very beautiful experience, to have this sense of family that all believe in the same thing and all working towards the same thing and all moving towards something. And especially if it's got nice values, I can imagine that's really beautiful. But that's not what non-duality is about. Non-duality isn't about how to live. It's not about a group of people working together. And mixing up these two ideas is how in the past we've got in trouble with religion becoming political and like our wars against each other. I'm not saying it's the only reason for wars, but it's this idea of difference, and it's the idea of like my group versus your group, and my beliefs are more true than your beliefs. I don't mean that a group of people that in non-duality can't come together to live together and to do things together, but just seeing that there isn't a non-dual way of life. There isn't like the right way of living in non-duality. It's not like Christianity. It's not like other religions where it's subject-object, that you are someone in relationship to the future, that you're somebody that's moving towards something in the future, that you're somebody in relationship to God, to something out there that has to work hard, that has to do certain things, do certain practices to arrive somewhere. And all of these groups always contain this idea of you versus the world arriving somewhere. And that's a political thing. That's a social thing. That's got nothing to do with religion. But it's often tied together, and often a lot of these groups become more about cultural and social elements rather than the truth of what's in the background, predominantly because most people are afraid of their lives. They're afraid of living their life and doing what they want and desiring, because they're afraid to step out of the box and be different. Or maybe they are different, maybe they do step out of the box to an extent, but then they're afraid of loneliness. So they're driven back to becoming part of a group, and then driven back to this mentality that my spirituality or that my philosophy is something that I arrive to in the future. You're never going to arrive at non-duality. You're never going to find a group of people in which you can have open-minded discussions and non-dual conversations, and you'll become more enlightened because of it. I think that's a fantasy of most people, that you want to be with more enlightened people, and if you were with more enlightened people, then you would be more free. And this is a fantasy. This isn't what non-duality is talking about. Non-duality is the absolute destruction of your concepts. It's asking like all the questions of what you believe, like what you take to be true, and just throwing them away. It's not true, it's not true. And what is left? Most of the time our mind is always set on hunting, on what you can achieve and what you can get, what you can take from this life. And so when you begin to get into non-duality, you want to make it into something that you can achieve and something that you can get, and something that can be about the production of money or the production of your livelihood. So this is when this religion and this group mentality takes over, like making money as a group, like creating a church, a religion, a ashram, a society, which can sell cups or posters or books and make money, and it can be about a way of life. And and then in your mind you think you're doing something great for society, or that you're doing something for the group in order to promote non-duality or the religion, but that's got nothing to do with non-duality. And I suspect all religions have non-duality at their source, but your living circumstances, you being more comfortable in life, isn't connected. So just see that. That you're afraid of how to live your life. So that's not got anything to do with non-duality. A lot of the problems come down to, in the human world, like how to live your life, like why you've become unhappy in life is because the way that you've interacted with life and you've focused on always trying to get pleasure, and then that's been like ramped up by the idea that it's in housing, it's in living together, or it's in certain community, or it's in having a husband or wife, it's in having kids, it's in having a retirement plan, it's something in the future. And there's this desperate fear about fitting into that group, about being protected and looked after. And I know you know what I mean, but you don't want to admit this because you don't want to address this. But it's the source of suffering, the saucy sauce, that juicy, nice blob of ketchup. It's the saucy sauce. So what most people are running around this planet doing, being afraid of, is survival. And often being part of a religious group is about survival. Like your purpose on this planet is to survive. And normally this is the fundamental question which baffles especially a lot of Westerners, because they don't have the struggle to survive anymore. So then they're like, what is the point to being alive? What's the point to my survival? And your point actually is to survive. But you don't believe me because you think there must be a bigger meaning. It must be like helping the world or discovering who you are. There must be a deeper reason for being alive. On the human level, the basic instinct is to survive, is to earn money, depending on the society you're in, if you have money, or to earn money, to collect food, to eat, to have shelter, to survive. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that movement towards wanting to survive. Often what happens to us though is because of our identity, because of this person that we believe we are, so this image that we hold of ourselves, so this idea that we hold, because of this idea, what happens is that we create all these fake images about what the meaning of our life is or should be. And we create narrative about ourselves which doesn't allow us to feel our natural instinctual purpose. So on the basic level, your natural level is to survive. And survival means food, the collection of food, being part of a group and community, creating children. It's these very basic things, like an animal. I know that most people are like, ding, ding, ding. And I see that when I begin to talk about this stuff, I do see it on YouTube. I see the statistics that people turn off when I begin to talk about this survival element, because it's really, really offensive to your story. How can it be that your life is about survival? My life must be about something greater. And this is when you create all these fantasies and there's religions about God and being good and like saving all the others from their sins, all these types of fantasies. But just come back and just listen to what I'm saying practically. So you have this natural desire to survive, and it doesn't mean that the natural desire to survive is being an asshole. Part of what we are as humans, which is super beautiful, is that we're community animals, and we do have this natural instinctual drive to protect and to serve others, which is super beautiful. We have this creative mind that can think of lots of creative ways in which to survive, to help other people, to help our environment, to help animals. So it's not like, I'm not talking about selfishness, but we have this natural desire to survive. And then what we have on top of this is our idea of ourself, which is formed for so many years around this ego, this identity. And the ego believes that the purpose of its life, so this illusory sense of self, this illusory I, believes that my purpose in life is to maintain the maximum amount of pleasure I can and to avoid pain as much as possible. Again, that's not conscious, so you might not see that or recognize that in yourself, but when you begin to pay attention to the body and you begin to see what's actually happening, you'll realize that there is this dynamic inside of you that is desperate to maintain pleasure. Let me give you examples of maintaining pleasure. Pleasure could be the idea of helping other people. Pleasure could be the idea of this God in the future that you're going to meet one day and that you're going to do all these good deeds for, and you're going to combat evil. Pleasure could be watching TV, eating food, belief systems that you hold with friends, moaning with friends, telling people what assholes people are in your life. Like, this is a pleasure. This releases endorphins in your body. Pleasure can be surfing the internet. Pleasure can be like posting lots of photos about yourself in very sexy positions with puffed up lips and people ticking it. Pleasure can be food, eating, drinking. So just think about what it is that you want in your life, and you'll notice that it's always about pleasure on the human level, always about getting pleasure. And what we do is we determine our meaning by pleasure. It's not a conscious thing again, but we see that a meaningful life is one that's contained lots of pleasure. That is total illusion. That's a mind, that's a made up idea. That's a philosophy that people have created and clung to and believe that that's truth. That's not truth. It's a fantasy. That's got nothing to do with this moment. Right here, what's happening now, it's totally irrelevant, the meaning of your life, these 80 years in which you've lived, the 40 years in which you've lived, but there's 80 years that you've got to live, and that you've got to have a meaningful life. And what that means is more power than others, bigger house than others, nice holidays, lots of good food, successful children, lots of money, blah, blah, blah. Nobody thinks like that a good, well, successful life is somebody that worked in the box office at the theatre and was on basic wage and had a very simple apartment. Nobody thinks that's a good life. Or somebody that works in the laundrette or something. And that this is absolute lie by the mind. It's an illusion that wealth in some way is more meaningful than poverty. But notice how we're deeply connected to this idea that money is our purpose and that good things and pleasure is our purpose. Even if we're not conscious of it, it's subconsciously happening in our culture all the time. So, So philosophy, back to philosophy. So you could say currently that science is our new religion. You could say also that the internet is our new religion in society. Like we believe this to be true, or money is our new religion. But non-duality certainly isn't a religion. If you really understand what it means nothing. It leaves you as nothing. It's not about you. It's the only philosophy that I've ever heard, or concepts that I've ever heard, or anything that I've ever heard that is absolutely not about you surviving in some way. It's not about you getting more money. It's not about you being more beautiful, more successful, more happy. It's about remembering something of what is. It's beyond the person. It's completely not a personal thing. To the person, it's absolutely irrelevant, because to the person, what you're looking for is pleasure. What you're looking for is something that adds to you, and this doesn't add to you. But that's impossible for you to imagine. And if you really comprehended that, you'd be like, fuck this. I'm off to the guy next door who offers me something where I transcend, and then I'm in permanent bliss and ecstasy, and have tantric lovemaking with my friend, and blah, 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 blah. This really doesn't offer you anything. And that's what's so spectacular about non-duality. And that's why it's totally unconditioned love, because it's nothing bound to this world. If it was something about you getting there, then it would be instantly put into money. It would instantly be put into something for us to buy, something that we had to work for. There'd be power struggles over it. There'd be arguments over it. Whereas non-duality is not about that, which is super, super beautiful. So the reason that I say non-duality is a philosophy, because what it does is it tries to point out the illusion of what you believe to be true. This is all like your process, but then you'll begin to be pointed out, or it begin to be pointed out that even you is an idea arising. And so it's not really your process, because who process is it? Like, so the deepest question is, who is you? Who are you? Who is this person at the bottom experiencing of all of this? But there's lots of ideas that you believe, like this belief that non-duality is a religion in some way, that you need to be with non-duality people, that you need to live in a non-duality house, that you need to have a guru, that you need to travel to India, that you need to do things to practice to get to non-duality. That is ideas. There was an idea that I think I was talking about. Oh yeah. And even the idea that what you're striving for on the human level is about pleasure, or is about money or survival, even that is difficult for you to hear and difficult for you to know, because you can't feel it. When you can feel it in your body, you'll know it to be true. I think you can feel it if I say to you, you're afraid of being lonely. So a lot of people are afraid of this loneliness. And this is something they imagine, this loneliness that they're going to get in the future, and that they've got to work hard to avoid. So the loneliness is connected to survival. The reason that we're afraid on the human level to be alone is because we can't survive alone. If we're kicked out of this group, we don't have anyone that can help us if we're ill. We don't have anyone that can listen to us if we're emotionally upset. We don't have anyone that can make us feel secure. We don't have anyone that can bring us food if we can't get food. We don't have any company to reflect back ideas and to talk to. And reflecting ideas means that we grow our knowledge and grow our understanding of our environment. We grow our knowledge about ourselves and the way that we can think about things. We like communicating is super important in our society, because firstly we're growing from each other, so we use each other to be creative about the way we think, so it helps us expand our knowledge. And like, it's much better to have like 10 people thinking about something than just one person, because as long as all of the people have been thinking about that thing a long time, and you're not constantly being pulled back by somebody's stupidity, as long as it's like already at quite a high level. So all your instincts to be around people is about survival. What is love? Can you actually love someone? Guilt's not love. Feeling guilty if you have kids, or feeling concerned or feeling worried about them, that's not love. That is what it is. In the moment it's arising, it's a guilt. Feeling that you've not done enough for them, or feeling scared about that future. That's not love. Love is a feeling of beauty, a feeling of expansion that happens in the chakra, in the heart chakra. So guilt and feeling insecure about them or worried about them, that isn't love. Worrying about someone isn't love. Being afraid not to be with someone because you'll be lonely isn't love. Feeling overly ecstatic about somebody loving you. So when you fall in love, even though there can be qualities of true love in there, so when you fall in love with someone, it's often a massive high, because that other person is validating your insecurities. So when you fall in love, you suddenly feel worthy to somebody. You feel like somebody sees you. You feel like somebody hears you. You feel like you've got connection. So all of these things that you feel when you're falling in love, when you get that ecstatic feeling, is actually because they're completing a part of you that's missing. So that can't be love. How can you truly love another if it's because they're giving you something which completes you? That's not truly loving another. That's using them to fulfill your desires and to fulfill your insecurities. So love isn't a negative feeling in any way. Feeling love someone because you can't live without them, that's not love. That doesn't, I'm talking about this well-being, like the feeling sensation of love, the actual feeling of it. So you know when you love someone because you have that feeling towards them. It's not a selfish feeling where it's based on when they treat you a certain way or when they do certain things. And the way that you can know if it's a selfish feeling is it can turn to hate really quickly. If they don't give you attention, if they don't give you affection, you suddenly really hate them, because who do they think they are to take something away from you? So obviously it's based on the way they treat you. Like, it's based on not the way they treat you, but what they give you in the moment. Like, love isn't something based on something. It's unconditioned love. But often we don't know our body well enough to see all of this. So we're confused, we're in this fog, we're in this mire or this illusion of everything we think. So what we think is that we can have all types of things. We think that people should give us attention. We think that our parents should treat us in a certain way. We think our parents should love us. We think that our kids should behave in a certain way. We believe that we should be a certain way when we're interacting with people. We believe we've got this image of what we should be like as a mother, the image of what we should be like as a father. And then we try to live up with to that, and it confuses our feelings right now. And we get all these illusions and all these lying stories that are going on. So you get lost in fog. So say if you've got a strong theory that you need to be a perfect mother, and then say if somebody implies or gives you the feeling you're not a perfect mother, then what you'll do is you'll go to a good friend and you'll moan about that person and talk about what a bitch that person is. And it's not that that person is actually a bitch or that that person has any inherent quality. It's that it made you feel insecure, so then you go to someone else to make you feel secure again. And we're constantly lost in this fog, whether it be at work, with our kids, with our husbands, of what we believe to be true. And all of this is based on survival, but we've got a very complicated survival compared to like dogs and other mammals. Like, ours is a lot more complicated because we can think about our behavior, we can think about ourselves, and we can think about the other out there. So then, what I'm saying is that non-duality isn't for that person in a way, in any way, and isn't about that person in any way, and isn't about satisfying that person. So then what is non-duality? It's so hard to say what it is. It's not really something that I can tell you in the positive. I can say to you what it's not, like this is illusion, this is illusion. But it's this essence, it's this moment, it's the simplicity of being. And it's an energetic shift from being an illusory character, so being something you believe, to being what you are, which is this moment, which is what you've always been. It's hot today. I see that I'm sweating in the camera. I certainly feel hot. So non-duality isn't for you. It's got nothing to do with you. And you just got to be realistic. Like, what are you in this for? Like, obviously, you is always in this for you. So you is always about you achieving something and you getting somewhere. And just be honest about that. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's something else that resonates with this, that knows this, that's got nothing to do with a human aspect, that it's about this empty looking and this sense of being alive, these two qualities are always there in every experience. And then when there's a resonance, the person can kind of like remember that or feel that, and then the person seemingly gets motivated by that only because it sees that as the next best thing, as the next pleasurable thing to get. But then the person begins to realize on the human level that, yeah, what I'm looking for isn't in this and that. It isn't in work. It isn't in women. It isn't in men. It isn't in relationships. It isn't in kids. It isn't in big houses. There is something else. Okay, so begin to answer questions now. Hi, Sean. Hi, Lisa. It's turning into goddamn religion. What is the first shift, the separation from the ego mind? Wow, that's lots of questions. What is the first shift, the separation from the ego mind or thinking mind? I don't know the difference between the ego mind and the thinking mind. I think that you're going back to Ramesh or Roger's teachings, but even he, like Ramesh would say, you are the ego. So I'll just put it into my language again, like rather than me going to your language. So it's too complicated if I try and speak in Ramesh's or Roger's language, so I just have to pull it back to the way I speak. So there is this thinking mind, so we can think about things, and then there's this seeking energy, which you maybe are calling the ego. And the seeking energy is when you're always trying to get to pleasure and avoid pain. You're always looking for the next experience that's going to complete you. And the seeking is never satisfied to be here. It's always wanting to be somewhere else. It's always in regret, expectation, blame, guilt, resentment. And it's always pulling into time, whether it's something about regretting the past or trying to be somewhere in the future. And it's not about actually being here and what's happening now. It's about something else. It's always lost in an illusion somewhere else. And in that illusion, it is desperately seeking for pleasure. And it believes when I get to pleasure, I'm going to arrive home. I'm going to have made it. I'm going to have got across the finish line and I can finally relax. And then it never happens. Its whole life, it keeps seeking for pleasure, 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 and it never gets there. So this is what's happening. And then what happens at some point is there's a disconnection from that. There is a breaking, and there can be brief breakings. Like throughout your day, you'll find there is opening and contracting. And when you're more open, you'd call yourself happy. And when you're more closed, you'd call yourself unhappy. But then at some point, there can be a break where you completely see that who you are is something that's not bodily. I mean, in one way, on the absolute level, you could say like you are the body and the body is everything. So all there is body, and the body is the whole world. But there's something that breaks and sees that you aren't limited to the body. You're not limited to the senses. You're not limited to that particular person. So there's a break that happens. And then it's seen really clearly that actually what you are is presence. This empty looking, that's totally empty of everything. That's totally empty of it's totally empty of thoughts, feelings, sensations, smells, touch, taste, any of the senses. It's beyond that. But yet you've always known it. It's always been there in the experience, but it's not you that gets it. You don't turn around and start thinking about it and be like, that's what Lisa's talking about. It's something that doesn't think or doesn't talk. It just is here watching. And then that would be an initial awakening. And then what there can be for many years after that is this expanding out completely to being no one, and then coming back to being someone. And this like contraction and expansion can be happening, where you contract really small and you believe you're someone, and then you expand, and then who you are is no one. Like who's experiencing this life is no one. And through that, and then even when this shift happens, this energetic shift, and then it's no one experiencing anymore, the body is still the body, and the person is still the person, and the body still wants to seek for its survival. Even though it's not a seeker anymore, the body still wants to survive. So maybe don't say seek for survival, but the body still strives to produce a living or produce money or keep relationships or whatever it is. But it's no longer believed that you're believed that you are doing that you're creating or doing your life, because you aren't the body, you aren't that person, you are everything. Yes, it should be philosophy, as it seems so complicated. Yeah, like the reason I like calling it a philosophy is because philosophy isn't about getting anywhere. And it's not about a belief system. But also, ultimately, it's not any of those on the ultimate level. But when we're talking about it in human language, I would prefer to call it philosophy than religion. Muji sells photos of his feet. Yeah, I should start doing that, except I don't have very pretty feet. Don't know if people would mind. If you just put it, in the YouTube below, they see sometimes there are t-shirts or cups on sale, and you can see it in the YouTube box. I can just have pictures of my feet. When I was a kid, I used to hold my feet in a lot because I was scared of going to school, and I was scared of the teachers, and it created like knobbly feet, like my little toes have little knobs on them. I don't do that with my toes anymore, but they still got bumps. Look, I'll show you. Not the most attractive feet. I used to be embarrassed about them. I got tiny. Oh, see, they're all knobbly. From I used to be like that all the time. I was scared. And also my mum used to buy me shoes that were too small for me. She didn't mean to. I had funny shaped size feet. I still have funny size feet. So yeah, I don't know if people buy mine because my feet aren't so attractive. I'm sure Muji's got those perfect baby feet. There's like nice separation between all the toes. Maybe I could get them photoshopped. Heroin has been my pleasure, but I stopped it for non-duality. What's the point of non-duality then? There's no point for you on the human level for non-duality. I can't stress that enough. It does shift the personality structure when it's seen, that there is a shifting of it. Like, so the person most probably becomes nicer, calmer, and you're no longer, it is total freedom because you're no longer bound to that, but it's got nothing to do with you. The person's still going to have its problems, its issues, its belief systems. Well, maybe not belief systems so strongly, but it's still going to have its way of being. So it's still going to have its tendencies. Like, who gets this? You're so convinced that you get this and that you're doing this for you. All you're interested in the human level is how to survive best. And now you've deemed happiness as surviving best because you used to be a heroin addict, and I'm sure that was disaster for your survival. You've pissed everyone off around you and fucked up your life, I'm sure, doing that. But I don't mean to be harsh and like, it sounds like I'm really like anti-drug addicts, I'm not, but I'm sure that heroin has made it so difficult for you to function, and it would have made you make really poor decisions and really annoy people around you, because you'll have created lots of pain in relationship. What's the point of non-duality? There is no point. You could say that life is wanting to recognize itself. So life wants to know itself, like it's created these complex forms, and it's now coming to a point where it is one of these forms and it knowingly knows it's a form. So it wakes up to itself again. And from being asleep, from being an illusion, it then remembers itself in some way. Otherwise it just is itself, like the dogs, the birds, the bees, the insects. But I suspect also on an evolutionary level that humans are getting to the place where they need to do this in order to complete the next stage of their survival, because at the moment they're so selfish and greedy that they're destroying everything. The greed is exponential. You are definitely hot. I've been using non-duality to avoid responsibility. I swear my feet are exactly the same. Yes, it was shit. Heroin. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Lewis. So happy I'm watching live. Nice to see you, Lewis. Hey, Thomas. Lovely to see and hear you. Nice to see you too, Thomas. Hey, Chase. Hi, Lisa. I sent you a DM on Instagram. God, I don't use Instagram. I mean, I do have an Instagram account, but I don't even know how to get private messages on Instagram. I'm just, I put a picture on their account occasionally. A view possibly going live with me on Instagram app one day. So if you respond and follow me on there, I can make it happen. Yes, I'm happy to go live with you and to do that, Chase. But I'm never going to see your message, and I get so many messages a day. Forget it. You're going to have to write to me in a different way. So write to me after this on Skype, and I'll tell you a different way to write to me, because I'm not going to see that on Instagram. Thanks, though, for reminding me. Hi, Lisa. Your picture has disappeared. Oh, it came back. Thanks, Carola. Not religion, not a philosophy, but a shift in realization with the play of the player to non-judgmental observer. Hey, Amy. Hello, Lisa. I have a question about some videos I recently watched in which you were being interviewed along with Tim Freak. He seems to have a very different experience than you do, or he describes it very differently. When he talks about non-duality, it sounds like there are three things happening: the transcendence, the immanent, and an observer of both, with the movement between them. It sounds very divided, and it sounds more like my own experience. No matter how beautiful any experience is, it's still an experience. I find it unsatisfactory and painful. When you speak, it's much more free and undivided. Can you explain about this? That was a very long time ago that I did that with Tim Freak. Maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. And Vikram, I'll call you back afterwards. So I can't remember the way he speaks, basically. That was a long time ago. It was only a couple of times, but I think it's really popular because he's advertised it a lot on YouTube. I really didn't enjoy that. It's the reason I don't do conferences, is from those conversations. Not just because of Tim. There was also a funny element to it as well. But it really put me off doing conferences. I do sometimes do conferences, but very rarely. Yeah, they put you in a panel, like they do this thing where they put you in a panel and then they like set you up to all argue against each other. And to me, it just seems absolutely ridiculous. It might be exciting and entertaining for the audience, but it hurts my heart that it felt like I was selling myself cheap. Like, yeah, that just gave me that feeling like this is really beautiful, and it was like being set up to people would argue because it was entertaining. So after that, I stopped doing conferences. But I don't really remember the talk. I just remember more that feeling. And I don't know, it's too hard for me to say what he's talking about, the transcendence, the immanent, and the observer of both. There's a movement between them all. And I don't know, I just don't know. I can't remember. Like when you say it sounds very divided and it's more like my own experience, no matter how beautiful an experience is, it's still an experience. I find it unsatisfactory and painful. When you speak, it's much more free and undivided. But every experience, I don't know, I can't work out what you're asking me. I don't know what you mean. You have to just, if you could just summarize it a bit more. I didn't know, yeah, it's too confusing. Or you can call in and we can speak in person. Just that there's an observer. From Tim's perspective, there's an observer. Yeah, it might just be the way he teaches. Yeah. There is no observer. If you can see an observer or find an observer, that's not the observer because you can't find it. You've grabbed something by the mind, it's a divided mind. There is only experiencing, which is everything. But it's also so hard to teach this that I can understand that some people call it the observer, or I call it the empty looking, or consciousness. Actually, there is no consciousness, there's simply everything, which is self-conscious. It's this idea that consciousness is inside the body in some way. The consciousness rests behind the eye and is inside looking out at this world. Yeah. Yeah. But there is a character that comes and goes. Like when you're just sitting here and I'm looking at the camera, there's no character. It's just what's happening. There's just speaking, there's just looking. But as soon as you ask me what I did today, then suddenly up appears this image of Lisa and what she did today. I guess I'm making a problem out of nothing. I suspect that what you want is that you just want to be free of it. Like you want to not suffer anymore. That's what you want on the surface level. But underneath, what's happening is there is a seeking to try to arrive somewhere. But there's never anywhere to arrive. It's right here. There's nowhere to arrive. It's right here. Hi Vikram, did you want to speak? We can speak, but sometimes people call when they... I just want to make sure he wants to speak. Hi Gina Carlo. Hi Lisa, I was wondering if I could call in. I have a phone and have to switch between YouTube and Skype. So if yes, just acknowledge and give me 20 seconds to switch back to Skype to call. Sure. Yes. So just call me when you're ready. Just let me make sure that the camera is still in focus. Yes. And just call Gino Carlo. Just call. Make sure you've got your headset in and a good internet connection. Okay, I'll just take another question while I wait for him to get back to me. Hi, Thoughts. Hey, Lisa. Thanks for bringing the survival topic up again. Last time it was hard for me to accept. Oh. Hello, Gina Carlo. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Gina. Hello. I don't think you've got very good connection. Hello.
I can't see.
Yeah, I think you've got really bad connection. Just let me turn my video off and see if that helps.
Oh,
Hello.
okay.
Maybe you can
Hello?
turn off yours. Are you near
Can you
your
hear me?
internet? internet box. Maybe you can turn off your
Okay.
your picture, your video, but maybe go really near to the internet box. Okay, I'm just going to hang up while you sort it out. Okay, who was I just answering the question to? Thoughts. Last time it was hard for me to accept. It scared me to see myself in daily struggle for survival, and I felt that there is more to life than survival. This time I could see it with less resistance. You see, when you're resisting it and you're denying it, what's happening is that you're feeling it, but you're trying to tell yourself a different story about it. And then what happens is that your body is in tension. So like what you're feeling is you're struggling to survive, or you're feeling you're not earning enough money, or that survival's hard, but you're not acknowledging it to yourself. And then maybe you're blaming society, or wishing for alternative ways to live, or daydreaming about winning the lottery. And then you're telling yourself a different story. And what this does is this builds up complications in the chakra body, so in the feeling body. And it's like a lie. So at the bottom of it, you feel vulnerable and you feel like you're not surviving well. And then on the surface, you tell yourself all these illusory stories, which actually keeps that feeling in play. And basically, the best thing that you can do is to acknowledge the base level of it, that you feel like you can't survive, which is something you'll have been taught by the education system. Our education system in Europe is absolutely shite. Absolutely shite. I'm so grateful that we have a society, and that we're currently in the evolutionary process where we see education as a right for every person that's born into our society, and I'm super grateful for that. But for the majority of people, including myself, the education system really fails. Unless you're really intelligent, it really fails you, or you've got strong intelligence in a conformitist type of way. Not like you can be strongly intelligent and still not fit into the society's education system. But an education system that believes that in order to learn you've got to work is totally out of sync with our natural way of being. All other animals play to learn how to work. So a dog play fights, a dog play hunts, a cat play hunts, a cat play fights. We play to learn how to grow our abilities. But in Western culture, we see, or most education systems see, that play is for playtime, and the rest of the time you have to force yourself to work and to do things that you don't want to do. And it's, and I'm super against it. I would say, though, that I'm so for our society. The fact that we see it as a basic human right is really beautiful. But I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, I'm going to lose loads of audience members now, but having kids and sending them into the education system, the government education system, I know that you most probably don't have the finances not to do it, but this is a really bad idea. It really fucks us up. To be taught every day for 13 years that work is work and play is play is completely against our nature. We will naturally find our way of wanting to survive if we're allowed to grow our talents. Not to be forced to be good at English and to maths and geography and all these crazy subjects, and to sit behind a desk. For a kid with so much energy at the age of 5 to be sitting around behind a desk for most of the day is craziness. It's a really bad system. And to be judged and to be put through exams, it really mentally is not good for your child. And so if you're going to have kids, and if you have kids, really think about, how are you going to educate them? Like, if we want our society to progress, you've got to, as a parent, think, and we want our society to be more open and more loving and more free, you have to think, when you have kids, how are you going to educate them? Because our society does not offer a good education system. It might make them good at certain skills, which are good for being in an office, but it won't make them happy. It will make them seriously unhappy. I would say that it's most probably only 20 or 30% of the kids actually thrive in school, and they're ones that are meant to work in offices and are good at these kind of academic or these academic roles. But there's so many more jobs than that in our society. And then what happens is you go out into the workplace and you're not somebody that's meant to be sitting behind the work desk all day, but then you end up in these kind of technical jobs because that's what you've been trained to do. And then it's really against your system, and your system is screaming, no, 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 every day. And you've built up years and years of unhappiness around it. And then to break out of that, you first of all have to learn new skills, so learn a different skill set. And then you also have to find out what it is that you want to do, because your society have taught you so much. There's so many things that you can't do, and that you have to sit behind that table and work all day. So if you are having survival issues, you'll mostly be traumatized by school, and you'll mostly be traumatized by your parents forcing you to be good at school. Like, I know that parents are doing it because they come out into the society and they realize that if you do better at school, then you can have more money and your life will be easier. But that's so mentally unhealthy for a child to be in that environment. And there are lots of schools now in Sweden and in some of the northern countries that are promoting play over work. So it's child-led, and you follow the child's play and what they intuitively do and naturally go towards. So basically what you're having psychological issues that come from your education, your belief around the production of money, and your belief around survival. And that's got to be changed. So you have to understand what it is that you think, what it is that you're telling yourself, what it is that you believe around survival. And most people believe that if they don't work hard, they can't survive. And like attracts like. So if you believe that deep down, then that's going to be your experience in everyday living. And it's just looking at that, what is it that I deeply believe, and seeing it to not be true. And then you can work with it to try and change it on the human level. This isn't non-duality. This is about the personality structure, the illusionary personality structure that grows once you believe you're someone. But you can tidy the cage, you can tidy up what it is to be you, to make your survival easier, to make your response to work, to the environment easier. Now it feels relaxing to admit that simply the body wants to survive and get most pleasure and avoid the pain, a game that can't be won. Thanks for that. Oh, that's great. And what is more lies beyond survival? And I have a question. In the last days, I find myself really missing my ex-girlfriend, and when I ask myself, what do I want? I feel the body wants to feel safe, in contact and loved, and also there is a wanting to come home in the deepest sense. Could it be that survival and longing for home mix together? And what do you recommend for handling it? First of all, coming back to what you feel and finding out for yourself. I would reckon that that longing and missing her more than likely is about wanting to be home and wanting to be safe. And just realizing that. And realizing that that's what our relationships tend to consist of. And there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of our relationships do tend to be based on survival dynamics, that you want to feel safe, that you want companionship, that you want intimacy. And these are survival dynamics because surviving alone is a lot more risky and a lot more dangerous. And then also two minds are better than one. So surviving with another and bouncing off the ideas and coming to a balance is better than just one mind. So all of it's about survival, affection and love, and all of this improves your happiness and your sense of well-being, and then helps improve your relationship to the world. Feeling part of a community, feeling like there's somebody there to support you. And there's nothing wrong with wanting these things, but just being really honest with yourself and seeing that your freedom, if you look for freedom in there, you won't find it. That to the body might want it, and that's fine, and the body can go after it, but you won't actually find what you're truly looking for in it. Like, so those are impulses that arise in the body, just like eating food and finding shelter. So there's impulse to also mate and to be in companionship. And these thoughts that you're saying are much more real and true than the thoughts of like, I want these big romantic stories to find my soulmate who I'm with for the rest of my life, blah, blah, blah. All these types of things. So just being really honest with it. And then seeing that that doesn't actually bring you what you want. That's just the movement in life. So the movement has an impulse to be in part of a group or to be with another person. But your freedom is right here. So whether you have that or not doesn't disrupt your freedom. And the freedom is the experiencer of this. The freedom is this moment. The freedom is what never leaves, that's always here. Always here. Yeah, da 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 da. Most masters, including you, have declared a long, arduous journey before awakening, yet all of them say it is here and now and you don't need to go anywhere. Yet all of them did try for years. That's confusing. It doesn't need years of effort. You're asking a question from confusion. You believe the awakening is about you. Like, who is it that awakens? So there might be a description in the apparent story of all the different things that happened, but who is it that awakens? So you say, yeah, all of them say is only here and you don't need to go anywhere. It's actually not really exactly what we're saying, that you don't need to go anywhere. I'm not actually saying that. I mean, maybe I don't think that you could go back and find me saying anything. I'm saying that the freedom that you look for, that you seek, is here. It's not in things. I'm not talking about whether you do meditation or whether you look at feelings or examine feelings or try and change feelings or emotions. I'm saying it's here. But do you need a little bit of a story saying that it's okay for years to seek for this? Like, it's okay, whatever you're feeling. There's nothing you're doing wrong. Whatever happens. Hi, Fabio. Hello, Lisa. Do you think that psychotherapy can be helpful on the human level? Yes. But just find a psychotherapist or somebody that works with you. Like, my issue with psychotherapy, with a lot of traditional psychotherapy, is it always stays in the dream of the person. So, and they don't use the body, some do, but try and find someone that really brings in the bodily element and what it is, and that somebody that goes beyond that as well, that also suggests there's another possibility. Otherwise it's always the person is trying to fix its stories and fix itself, and it doesn't even question the validity of the stories. But yeah, I think it can be helpful to speak with someone that makes you see like why you keep putting your hand in the fire, or why you keep doing this, or what you need to change, or what dynamics you're acting out again and again. Hello, beautiful Lisa. Hey, Natalia. I used to want to not want, to be pure, to gain these freedoms by not wanting anything. Now I see that this is happening inside myself, this human is happening in this, and this realization somehow giving space and light to these parts of the character that I wanted to hide. So before I go on, I just want to speak about that. So Natalia, is that to do with conditioning? There is nothing wrong with wanting, but sometimes when we grow up with families or in the education system, we're taught so strongly that we're not allowed to get what we want, or that there's something shameful about what we want. Like when I was growing up, I had 2 sick people in my family. I've talked about this before, I think, but my gran, I grew up with my gran, my mom, my dad, and my brother. And my brother and my gran were very sick a lot of the time. And anyone that had any other wants or needs, there wasn't really any room for it. So as a child, like in that being my conditioning, I was conditioned that my wants and needs weren't important or caused problems. So I had to squash them down. So when I came into non-duality, I also had this approach that I wanted to not have any wants and needs because I believed that that was the perfect human that would be loved by other people. It wasn't actually because of non-duality, it was my relationship to non-duality. And I used to find things like law of attraction like repulsive because I just thought it was so selfish or so arrogant or such nonsense, because I was ashamed of what I wanted because I'd never had that validated. I'd always had that my wants created friction because there were other people with more needs and wants in my family. And so establishing what I wanted and understanding what I wanted on the human level was super important, but it's still something that I have to do and put effort into. Like on ultimate level, like there is no wants. Like you can sit here and the body can just like be totally free, but then there comes decisions that need to be made, and there comes movements and choices, and there is wants, and the wants feel like love. Most people think that when they want something, it's a thought, but actually when you want something, it might be an image and a thought, but it's also a vibration in your body of positivity. When you want something and it's a vibration of negativity, really question that, because that's not what a want should be. A want should be a natural want that's not about greed, that's not about selfishness, that's not about seeking. It's just a vibration of love or a vibration of goodness. I would like to say about Muji, because I started non-duality by watching him. And I have met him 2 times in person, and it was very, very strong experience energetically, very high vibration. And I wanted to stay there feeling this extreme joy. This is also natural that we want to feel good. So this vibrational high is wanted. I feel also that this is making some work inside. But I don't know how to explain this. Maybe you could say something about this. Thank you. That was such a nice drink. I enjoyed that. Yeah, sure. So I don't know. There's 2 things about joining an ashram or an organization. Like in some ways I can see it being really beneficial. Like if I thought about myself, like sometimes I think if like I have Khaleesi to look after, but if I didn't have Khaleesi to look after and I wasn't doing this, I sometimes consider that I would join an ashram or something, because survival is easier. Like I'm very happy doing gardening or like mundane jobs in an ashram somewhere, and the whole survival is looked after, and it's a very simple life. And there's something very nice and easy about that. What I would find difficult about being in the ashram is if I was asked to prescribe to a belief system, like a really strong belief system, which most ashrams you are required to, I think including Muji's, and also asked to ignore bad behaviors from people in power. I would struggle to do that. But I do see that it is an easier way of life, especially if you're young, or even if you're older and you haven't really created a life in this outside world, or if you have, you're not particularly liking it. So I do understand that. So also from the vibrational level, you gotta remember, like when you meet a guru in an ashram, there is a lot of energy happening there, because not only have you got the teacher, which I suspect has had the energetic shift. I suspect Muji's had that energetic shift. I think that I can't guarantee that, but I think that some of his characteristics beforehand he didn't deal with and are most probably being acted out now. Like some characteristics that aren't very nice, but that's because he didn't deal with it before, and the personality, the character doesn't dissolve. But I suspect that there's been the energetic shift there, or there's been a big energetic shift. I don't know. There's something that happened. But I also have a nice feeling when I listen to him, that there's a nice energy that it comes from. But when you go to the ashram, which can be confusing for people, and can get people stuck in there, not just his, but anybody's, is that you've got hundreds and hundreds of people worshipping him. Not just him, Muji, but other teachers. So you can go to some of them, like, so what was that teacher, that big one, Sai Baba? And he had thousands and thousands of people watching him, worshipping him. So when you go to a satsang, there isn't only the teacher's energy, which is open and expanded and free. You've also got thousands of people around them giving that person love. And that is, that can have a huge effect on you. But that's not actually freedom. Those are two different things. It happens when you go to a concert as well. It's like you get into delirium. It's the same with if you go into a room and you've got lots of people hate and anger and bitterness. Like if you went maybe into a prison, you'd feel this tight contraction. But also you've got this energy when lots of people are around loving that one person or that one object. There's lots of positive energy that's being in that group, which can be really beautiful, but that's not freedom. That's an emotional reaction happening on the human level, and that also can behave like a drug. So it can become an addiction. It's like I don't know the name in English. Yes, I understand this. So then what happens is you go and live in the ashram, and he will become like a drug to everyone. So everyone will have this like really wonderful projection onto Muji, and will always be, or onto the person. I don't mean to speak about poor Muji. Like, I'm also super grateful that Muji has made non-duality so accessible for people. I just don't like this other sexual stuff. And the whole kind of power structure things. So then everybody's addicted to this drug and everyone's fighting for his attention. And this isn't such a psychologically healthy environment to be in. Like, you'd be better off in a more neutral, like Buddhist ashram than in an ashram that's always fighting for one person's attention, because it gives that person a lot of power. And if that person isn't psychologically very balanced, then they'll be greedy and they can't help but pick the fruits from the sangha. So like, live in the best house, live in a giant mansion where everyone else sleeps in halls, have most of the money in their name, sleep with the young students. And that's a psychological thing. And then what you're doing is you know that deep down that there's an unbalance and there's something not quite right going on there. And then you have to swallow it, and you have to like lie to yourself about it, pretend it's not happening. And if you question it in the group will jump on you. They won't let you think or question it. This isn't healthy. This is like schooling environment. This is like our society. That goes back to the world. And then you sort of like get into the dogma of the group, that nothing Muji says can ever be wrong, and that you guys are always unenlightened, and that you've always got to work on yourself. But having said that, you know, sometimes that's a better option than your living environment. Thank you. You are telling me my thoughts loudly. But I'm not against it. Like, if after I had this big awakening, I did go and consider living in an ashram in India. Because I just wanted a really simple life, and everything seemed too complicated, like other options. And then when I came back to the West, I just wanted a really simple job of being a dog walker or something. But it's never that simple in the West, because we have to maintain so much paperwork in order to exist in the West. Whereas an ashram in India seemed like it could be just invisible. I also appreciate Muji. Yeah, I appreciate Muji too. I don't mean to sound like I really dislike him. I think there's freedom there, and I'm grateful for him sharing all those words. I just don't agree with this whole guru thing for many reasons that I've said in the past, and there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for some behaviors, saying it's God or saying it's the divine acted out. And I'm not talking about Muji here, I'm talking about other guru figures. It doesn't, intuitively it feels wrong, and it feels wrong for everyone that comes in contact with it. But the other stories of having a guru and you getting somewhere overcomes it, and so then you begin to shut your eyes to it, just like in this society. Because your intuitive feeling feels like there's something not quite right about that. But the organization will keep saying, you know, your intuitive feeling is wrong, that is ego, that is a lie. There is nothing wrong with these power discrepancies. Yeah, you see, the nice thing about Ramana's ashram is it is there is like there is an impersonality there, as in regards to Ramana's not still around, so it's got a system that works. So there isn't such a hierarchical system. I'm sure it still is hierarchical. I'm not against hierarchical, actually. It's just as long as the hierarchy is balanced and not being greedy. I actually, when I was thinking about the ashram, I was thinking about Arma's ashram, which is really, they do some really crazy things there. Yeah, but it felt quite good. Hi Lisa, if there's no observer, who is looking and experiencing? Exactly. It's everything. There is no separate observer. There is everything that is observing. Okay, so the red notification on Instagram for DMs is at the top right corner of your screen, but I would just email you. So when you see it, you'll know it's me. Yeah, cool. It's just I don't ever go on it. Like, I think that you project onto me that I've got good memory, which I don't at all have a good memory. Like, so when I come off this, I won't remember to go onto Instagram to see your message. Hey, bonsoir. Comment allez-vous? How are you going? I'm sorry, I tried calling. It must be my connection. Yeah, I think, Gina Carlo, your connection's really bad. You also need a headset as well. Freak was taking the piss. Freak was patronizing you. Freak can be beep. Freak beep. Okay. When I was staring into your eyes, I stopped thinking. I've been in depression through addiction for 20 years. Will understanding non-duality solve this? Isn't non-duality enlightenment? Non-duality is freedom. If you want to call it enlightenment, then you can, but it's nobody's enlightenment. Hi Lisa. I'm planning to send my kid to a Waldorf school in Sweden. And it's funny that I listened to you just now that I'm going to sit all night fixing the papers to submit tomorrow morning. Yeah, that's great. I think in the northern parts, so in Germany, in Sweden, there are a lot more Waldorf schools. I don't know about France and England and Spain and Italy and all that in Europe. But I know certainly in German and Steiner schools, which are a different approach to learning. Like, I don't know how anyone could think that that could possibly be a good thing to send your kid to mainstream school. It's really not so nice for a lot of kids. But we're so indoctrinated to it. Like, I was watching this comedy program of this young kid. So he was being interviewed and he was talking about, he was in school. So they were asking about school and he was like, yeah, they like send me there like for like 10 days straight. And I have to go from like 9 a.m. to like 6 a.m. And he's like, it's like being in prison, it's torture. And all the audience was laughing, but laughing in a way like they know. And they're like, welcome to the real world, which is such a bad attitude. Like, society thinks that work or education should be this torture camp. Like, should be this thing where you're doing things constantly that you don't like doing. Thanks, I really appreciate your answer and that you don't enjoy those panels. I sensed that, but it was helpful because it made me realize something about where I've been stuck. I keep using the natural coming and going of the character as evidence that I still have a separate me. Once you helped me bring it back to the simplicity of just this, I realized it's just a smoke and leftover from believing in the real. Thanks again and again. My pleasure, Amy. Yeah. Yes, Lee, agree with you 200% on the education system. It's so overdue for reform. The Rudolf Steiner schools are very different in terms of approach, but they're still considered a little too hippie even in Scandinavia. I do think things definitely are moving in the right way though. Yeah. Do I know Shiva Shakti interior? Yes. I've been there lots. Okay, time for me to go. I didn't finish all the questions, but it's coming up to past 8 o'clock. That's for 2 hours I've been doing. So that's enough for tonight. So I'm here again on Wednesday at 6 p.m. French time. So you're very welcome to join me. Thank you for all your questions. And yeah, and if you want to join this online retreat I'm doing, then subscribe to my website or keep updated on my website and I'll put it on there in the next coming days. Thanks guys. Bye.